Rail Up, the future mobility podcast with innovators and leaders of the ecosystem. Presented by Sebastian Sperber.
Today's guest is Oliver von Sperber, founder of the rail tech company AXO. In this episode, we will explore how predictive maintenance is transforming railway infrastructure and why something as small as a switch can have a massive impact on the entire network. We will talk about the technology behind it, the challenges of building hardware for extreme conditions, and what it takes to make rail more reliable. And along the way, we will discover an unexpected link between forests and railways. So get started and let's jump to Berlin. Hi and welcome to Rail Up. Hi Oliver, nice to have you on my podcast. And as you know, I start always the question, so are you rather innovator or a leader?
Hi, Sebastian. Thanks for having me. I'm clearly an innovator. I like to improve things. I like to fix problems. This motivates me. It gives me energy. Sometimes, if you really drill deep holes, you need a group of people to support you in doing so. So you have to inspire these people. You have to that they walk the path with you, and even if it's a tough climb. So as a founder, you also always have the role as a leader.
Yeah, and today we are focusing on predictive maintenance for one of the most critical parts of the rail infrastructure, the switches. And these heavy metal components are at the heart of the railway operations, and maintaining them predictively is both like a technical and operational challenge. But at RailUp, we don't just talk about solutions and innovation, we also care about the people behind them. And Oliver, your stories actually really stands out. So you didn't start in rail, you actually began your career as a firefighter. And that's quite a unique path into this field. So could you tell us more about your journey? What drew you from emergency response into the world of rail infrastructure and predictive maintenance? And how has that background shaped actually the way you approach problems, innovations, and safety today?
So I grew up in the Black Forest. So I really like to spend time in nature. As a child, the weekends I always went into the forest. I took my sleeping bag. Not only spent the days there, I also spent the nights there. I still like to doing it from time to sleep in the forest. So I think my deep passion for nature and sustainability really is rooted in my childhood. And then after school, I went to the army, was a paratroop reserve officer, and then started studying forestry, coming back to the forest. And as you said, I worked as firefighter in Oregon, so preventing forest fires, and also participated in a DEG project in the Amazon forest, which was also very interesting and great time. But I also started thinking, who is financing all this? And this is how I got interested in economics. So I started to study economics in Witten-Herdecke. And after this, I joined Berenberg Bank in Hamburg in the corporate finance department. We advised typical traditional German corporates and businesses. And when the venture capital industry started to pick up in Germany, I co-founded a corporate finance advisory firm to advise fast-growing tech companies. It's a company today with 12 offices in 8 countries in Europe and North America, Carlsquare. And I built this business up for 6 years and then joined the sensor business. I invested in this business and also joined the management. So this is how I came in this world of sensor technology. And this business was really a failure. I lost a lot of money, but gained a lot of experience.
Okay, that's good.
And, And together with the CTO, I started a sensor engineering business. So we did customer-specific sensor designs, and one of our customers was Deutsche Bahn. And this is how I really came in the railway industry. When I learned that 20% of all infrastructure-related train delays are caused by rail switch failure, I thought, oh, this is a problem you have to fix. And this is how I started AXO.
But actually, now you missed out like the cool part. You just told me in our pre-talks that you were sitting like in the train, literally, and then starting to Google about what is the problem with switches, right?
Yes, exactly. I was sitting in the train. It was standing, and the reason was Weichenstörung, which is basically a failure of a switch. And this is how I really dive deep into it. And before I founded AXO, I booked a switch mechanics course to learn more about it. What is, to learn about the parts which are breaking and so on. So when I visited this course, I asked, why don't you use sensors to measure this, and why don't you use sensors to measure that? And because nobody could give me really an answer, I said, okay, this might be interesting to develop something in this direction.
Coming back to first for 1 minute, you said like you had like you lost a lot of money but gained a lot of experience. So what kind of experience you gained? So what was or is were the lessons learned in this period?
A lot of lessons I've learned is in relationship with people. At this time, we also had investors in our business, and we came into conflict with the investors, and there were also two investors groups who came into conflict with each other. So there was a big mess in the stakeholders, within the stakeholders, and I think it's also my responsibility to manage this, to bring all the stakeholders together and align them and really work as a team. Also in the railway industry, you have a lot of different stakeholders. You have this big corporation for strategic selling and different interests. So you have to align everybody to come together. And you also never have immediate success, because it's a very long-term sales process, and you have to prove that your technology is really working and helping. You have to get the budgets. You have to align everybody.
So bringing the right people together. This is also like one thing of RailUp, and now building like the bridge. You said you work for the forest, and you also spent your childhood there. Let's say the forest is at risk, bravery might be also at risk. So is there a common thread between these two economic systems?
I mean, first of all, as I said, I worked also as a firefighter, and of course, what you want to do as a firefighter, you don't want to fight the fires. You want to prevent the fires. So you do everything that there's no fire, and this is the same with the switches. The problem is if the maintenance crews only start to fight fire, so they only go out when the failure already is there, then you have lost. Then this is what we see at the moment in the German network. So you have to prevent the failures. You have to go out before the failure happens, so the timetable is smooth and the trains can go.
I would say like I have a kind of an analogy also during the triathlon. When you feel that you're hungry, like during the race, then it's already too late. So you really have
exactly.
to prevent, to really think ahead. And I think that's maybe I really like the comparison between the forest and rail. Coming now to your company AXO, so you would like to prevent failures of switches. So can you just explain us a little bit? What is your product? What is AXO all about, and how you can prevent failures of switches?
So we have a small box which we mount on different parts of the switches, on different critical parts, and then we observe just what happens. And the rail switch, as probably a lot of the audience now, is just wear and tear over time. There's nothing you can see. At some point, you have to renew it, but the time until you renew the switch can be prolonged, and you can take so good care of a switch that it doesn't break down. So basically what we look at the switch is when is the right time to take care, and when do you have to go out before failure occurs.
The business is to foresee, to prevent failures, and to have the right timing, sending like the engineers there to get it repaired.
Yes, exactly. And if you think about how maintenance works nowadays. The maintenance crews go out to the switch in certain intervals. Sometimes there are a few months in between, and then they look if everything is okay. And in between the intervals, they are blind. And what we're giving them is they can see at every moment in time how is the health of my switch. Is it doing good? So you can have a dashboard and you really see the health index, and you see, okay, this group of switches is doing really well, but here's a switch which have problems, so you can allocate resources on this switch and send your team out to this switch.
It's like a health watch device. Basically, you put not on the arm, but you put it on the track, and then you can track actually everything, and you can see if something is happening.
Yeah, you mentioned the triathlon before. It's exactly like this. You can run better if you have a pulse watch and you can monitor your pulse. We are not the doctors, really. This is a different departments, but we improve the pace and take care that it's healthy. Yeah.
Okay. Your product is not really preventing like a safety case, so there's no guarantee that you can read everything, what can go wrong, but there is a high probability that you see if something going wrong in the future and to react before it happened, right?
Yes, at the moment. So the development might go there. That is also safety relevant, but therefore, of course, you have to also change the whole rule set. What we want to do at the moment, it's really plug and play. You go on the switch and it works inside the existing rules, and it just prevents you additional information to allocate better resources.
Okay, so you have the box, you have sensors around like plug and play like on the switch, and then you measure when the trains passes through like the data points. And talking about volume and data, can you just give us a feeling how many data points you monitor when the train passing by?
It's around 250,000.
250,000.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Per train.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a busy track, you have 120 trains. So yeah, there's a lot of data you're collecting. Yeah.
Is the box like a little computer which is processing all the data and then sending to the cloud, or you're sending everything to the cloud? So that means you have a lot of data upload into the cloud, and you're doing then the monitoring and the interpretation of the data there.
Yeah, the standard setting is that the box itself is a small computer and makes a calculation and just sends a few data into the cloud. But we can also ask the box to send all the raw data if we want to do deeper analysis.
And one buzzword in terms of infrastructure, it's basically that you need a very resilient box and system. Is there anything what you need on the tracks? Like, for example, is there like a power supply, or how difficult or easy is to mount the box? What is the life cycle of such a box?
So first of all, I think a big part of our development was to really make this box stable. So even if we went through all the certifications through a certified lab, which you need from the railway industry, our first box, or the first boxes we mounted on the track, were completely destroyed after 2 weeks.
Although you got the certificate, so it's working, you can
Yeah,
go
it was
out.
all certified according to the specifications, but we measured up to 500 G, and we even had material from defense tech in our box, but the electronics didn't keep, and also the people who went on the track, they were very proud. You see, we are harder than the military. and this is true. The environment is extremely harsh. So this is the first requirement: is you have to build the hardware that it really keeps in this environment. I told you it was completely destroyed after 2 weeks, but the lifetime of the box should be at least 5 years. And you asked about the power supply. It has a battery, so you don't want to have any cables, also for safety reasons. The first part of development is really make the hardware tough, and then the second part of the development is, of course, electronics, that it's a very low battery usage, so it can keep this time. Because what you don't want to have the track workers to take care about your sensor box. You don't want them to change batteries every 2 weeks, and you don't help. So it should be, you mount it very fast in 5 minutes. Nobody looks at it anymore, and you just see everything in the dashboard.
And how many boxes you already have like online?
We have 600 boxes on our platform, and we are just in the process to add another 400.
So you're collecting already a lot of data.
Yes.
But you told like every switch is different, right? So every switch has their own character. Let's put it that way.
Yes, it's not like on the street, you have always one stop sign, and the AI can say, okay, this is a stop sign, so I have to stop the car. First of all, you have different sizes and radius in switches, but then you have also different underground. And at some switches, all day the sun is shining on. Others, you have a lot of ice, and there's a more colder weather. And then also they have different ages, because not all switches have the same age. So I would say there's no single switch is like the other.
And you mentioned now the password. I was just waiting for that for AI. First, you said you have to manage the hardware, right? Because this is a huge challenge before you generate data and to have like a life cycle of 5 years. About AI, about data, like how you interpretate the data.
You could call this classical AI. We're doing it with pattern recognition. But before you start really with AI models, you have to understand what is going on there. And what we try to do is we really try to translate this experience of the track workers into technology. Because what you have a lot of very experienced track workers which will retire in the next years, and you lose this experience. There's really a shortage of staff, especially in these jobs, but the train traffic increases and so on. So you need a solution for this. I think what is very important to spend a lot of time on the track with the people who are really on the track, who have this experience, and try to translate this into technology.
How we can envision that in reality. So you have some engineers like at your company, or you show the pattern, or you go together to a specific switch with a technician, and then you ask like, what is your opinion? What do you see and what we measure, or how we can envision that?
We go out with the technician to the switches. Together we mount our sensors. We also ask them, how would you improve the mounting process? And once the sensor is mounted on the switch, it gets immediately connected to the backend, and then we observe the switches. And if we see something happen, of course we asking the people, can you go out with us? Can we have a look? And then we compare what really happened and what do we see in the data.
You said you have roughly 600 boxes like mounted, and after, I don't know, 2-3 times coordinating with the engineer from the infrastructure provider, then you get already like a good feeling about the specific switch, or is it a longer process?
If something happens, you see immediately the difference. If you have a lot of void on a switch, and then there are some measures taking, like a tamping machine comes or whatever, and then immediately you can see what is the difference. And then you see the stage before, and you see the stage after, and then you see over time also how the let's say the good stage decreases again to a worse stage, and from there you can build your algorithms.
And also how fast it happens, right? I think that's probably also
Yes,
very
yes.
important.
But I would say after 1 year you have a pretty good idea already.
About a specific switch.
Yeah.
And what is like, I don't have really an idea, like how long normally is the life cycle of a switch?
It should be 25 to 30 years.
Okay.
But sometimes it's only 2 years, because a frog is broken and has to be renewed. So this is optimal. 30 years is an optimal case.
Yeah, sounds like
Could be much shorter.
Let's speak about the business case and about the market, because that's I think also one crucial point. You're located in Germany. I think you're acting right now just in Germany. Can you give us an idea how many switches are on the German network?
There are over 60,000 switches.
60,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there like I would say like categories of switches?
From the 60,000, there are around 30,000, which would be good to be monitored. A lot of switches are only for very slow traffic, is there for
Cargo business.
And so yeah, you're the profi. But cargo is also a very interesting industry. It's especially like heavy haul in the States and so on. Yeah, and they may also destroy the switch. And sometimes the slow, heavy trains make more damage than the fast ICE going over it. But let's say there are 30,000, and then you have like around 10,000 on this really high intense corridors at Deutsche Bahn.
Okay. It's quite a lot. I mean, if you'd say 10,000, you have already 600 boxes in place, but it's not too big the market, but I think it's like it's just in Germany. And also, can you give us a little bit of feeling about why the infrastructure manager is actually investing in this kind of technology? So why they would like to solve their this problem?
Yeah, if you manage to reduce train delays, it has a huge effect, of course, in terms of cost, also in terms of acceptance from passengers, and also, of course, you can increase train traffic on the given infrastructure.
And money-wise, is there a business case what you can just tell us, like how it's working?
There are certain scientific papers which say on the German network, a 1 minute train delay costs around €100, roughly.
That sounds not too bad, but go ahead. I think this.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's say if you see on a switch there's too much void and you have to reduce the speed from, let's say, 230 kilometers per hour to 130 kilometers per hour, let's say on a track of 100 meters or so, until the train brakes and so on, it costs each train 25 seconds. And if there are 120 trains going over one day, you have cost of around €5,000 per day just for this delay. And if you have this for 30 days, the costs are adding. And then you even have cascades effect, where you say you can factor 3 to 10 to the cascades effect. You come easy to numbers of several €100,000 per month in this period of time. And of course, if you can prevent this and you never have to have a period of slower trains, you save a lot of money.
But that's a quite cool point. I mean, you just say like decreasing from 230 to 130 kilometers, just a 100 meter. And then you're generating like cost per month, like roughly for 150,000. And then you have the knock-on effects in the network. Yeah, what you said, like between 500 and 1 million euro just for one single switch.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can tell the operator, listen, in 4 months' time, you have to fix this. Fix it in 3 months' time. You have a machine coming for 5 days, and then it's fixed, and you operate again.
But this just brings me like back to the one episode with Ares from Palantir, because he said like it's so important. I mean, I think it's a little bit different case in Germany, but he said like it's so important to understand when or how I can plan to have like the engineer, the technician there, like to plan everything and to plan in a much better way. And I think what you providing the information to the infrastructure means basically they are much better in planning the resources in order to check every switch. You just send them specifically to switches which should be investigated, something happening, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we have one more information which you could play into a Palantir system, and the future is really you have an AI which really can optimize the timetable on the run, always optimize it. And also, with ETCS, you can tell the trains, okay, now this train goes 5 kilometers slower, this goes a little bit faster. And so you have a smooth track. But we're talking here about many years before this becomes reality. But at some point, you have to start. This is the way to go. Yeah.
But I think that's the magic then, right? When your system and other system, we had also Digitale Schiene, like Michael Küpper, like in the podcast, like when all the data comes together, I think then you have the really high benefit in order to really predict something, to react in a minute, and also to evaluate what is the best option at this very moment, right? I think that then it gets really powerful, AI.
Yes.
AI is a massive buzzword, especially in predictive maintenance, but you said, and this is quite, I think, an crucial point, that first you have to fix the hardware, so and you will work then on AI.
We see ourselves more as a sensor company than an AI company. But of course, the development goes more and more in the direction to AI. But you need really to understand what's going on. You need to understand your data before you start with AI.
Yeah. And what about data? I think Axel is also special on this topic. So who is the owner of the data after all?
Our customer, of course. Yeah, our client. I think this is very important for our clients that they own the data. And I'm personally, actually, I'm surprised that the industry that there's even a discussion about it, and the industry wants to keep the data, I think it's okay. The customer is paying; he should have the data, and we provide the hardware and the services. It's okay.
Absolutely. But I think very often you find the case that the company who's measuring the data would like to own the data, although not all of them really understands how to use it in the right way. And I think this also hinder us as in the ecosystem of not sharing the data to really use the full potential of AI. So
it's not only that they own the data. I think what is also very important, that you always can explain why did you come to these results. The customer always can come to us and ask us, why did you give us this recommendation? And then we can go down the data and can really explain. So we don't have this black box approach. There's some AI which gives some result, but at the end you don't know why this result is. And especially I think in the railway industry, where first priority is safety, it's very important that you always can exactly explain why did you come to a certain result.
okay, that's really quite a difference. And talking about AXO, like how many employees working for AXO right now?
We are now 11 employees and 10 freelancers.
And they are all engineers and technicians.
Yeah, most of them are engineers and technicians. Yeah.
And okay, but can we envision your tech team and with a company culture like as known from Silicon Valley?
This is very interesting. Silicon Valley, I mean, it's really
pizza and sleeping in the garage.
It's very fast blitz scaling, bringing product into the market and test it with the users and so on. For us, quality is more important than speed because, as I said, priority in rail is safety, and you cannot just put something on the track and test if it works or not. It needs to meet the requirements of the railway industry, and this is for a good reason. For us, quality is very important, and therefore you lack a little bit speed. We don't necessarily sleep under our desk. We go at home because it's important that you are slept in and you have a clear head while you develop these products. Of course, you always have sometimes a deadline to meet, and then everybody has to work hard to bring it out. But in this way, it's something different if your clients are railway operators or infrastructure providers, or if you have a typical B2C business.
Makes sense. Basically, and you also said that you're on a good way on in terms of sleep. So you said when you started AXO, your average sleep hour was 5 hours, and now you're back to 7, something like that, right?
Yeah, we talked about the pulse watch before. Yeah, so tracking my sleep, it is a lot of work if you build up a company. Like the first 3 years, average sleep was 5 hours. I said it's not enough for me, because this is a long-term thing what you're doing here. So you need to stay healthy. So I came up to 6 hours, and now I'm at 7 hours average sleep, which is okay.
That's a good achievement. As you said, every switch is like unique, but on the other hand, I think if you understand how efficient you can measure the switches and the health of the switches, you can scale it quite a lot. What are the next steps of AXO and which market you're targeting?
Yes, I said before there are 10 to 30,000 switches which could be equipped in the German network, but we are calculating around 1.5 million switches worldwide. These are different markets. In Germany, we're looking at the high-speed networks. In North America, for example, you have the heavy haul market, which is much more important, but it's also very crucial. I mean, you have heard there are certain train accident happened because of switch failure and derailment, which had huge damage because of chemicals polluting waters and lakes, or you have big fires. So it's a big topic, and we got a lot of requests in the States. Actually, we also have some trials going on in the United States.
Okay. So US is the second market. So you have like high speed, you have heavy haul, and is there any other segment you're targeting?
I would say high speed, then heavy haul, and later it's will be also light rail metro markets.
Okay. Yeah. How is the competition environment like in this specific field?
There's a lot of competition. I mean, the big corporations, they look into it. There are some startups looking into it, but the problem hasn't been solved yet. So this is why we started AXO. Yeah.
Okay, so basically the whole industry to solve this topic is still at the very beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, they're all looking for it. They have different solutions, which are similar. It's very exciting. It's a quite competitive environment.
Okay, can imagine that it's a little bit stressful, but it also kindles and enables new technology and innovation. This a specific case.
Competition is good, and you see there's a real problem to solve. Yes.
Oh, that sounds great. So that's today, but let's talk about the future. How you would envision the rail ecosystem in 2050?
In 2050, we have 10 billion people in the world. Rail is expected to double its capacity. It also needs to double its capacity because you have to transport these people, and rail is the most environmental way of mass transport. So in terms of climate change, this needs to be improved. And I'm very confident that we will really have a rail system which developed further. We will have autonomous trains, we will have moving block, we will have a lot of predictive maintenance. So you have on the given infrastructure perhaps 30% more traffic. Of course, you will have some more in infrastructure, and you will have everything modernized.
So there will be a bright future for the rail in your vision.
I'm very confident about this. And we talked about AI. AI will play a big role in this and help a lot. There's a lot of manual work which can be automated and will be also much better with AI.
That's basically like the spirit what we need, Oliver, really to change, to shape the ecosystem for better. And exactly this is the spirit of Rail Up the podcast. So Oliver, thank you very much having you and greetings from Vienna to Berlin.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, and I really appreciate that you're doing this Rail Up podcast. It's exactly like you said, you're bringing the railway industry together, not only in Europe, but worldwide. You have a lot of listeners, very, very interesting. And I really appreciate that you take your time, and happy to join the Rail Up Club.
Which superhero do we need to avoid the climate disaster?
We need Batman for execution, we need Iron Man for engineering, and Professor X to align stakeholder interests.
What is the contribution to drive climate change?
On a personal level, it's about quality over quantity, choosing products that last longer, also taking the train wherever possible. Of course, that means we have to make the rail system more attractive. Then also there are the small things like eating one high quality piece of meat a week instead of cheap meat every day. And I really think we shouldn't be afraid of giving things up. Instead, we should be brave and look forward to this new world which is coming. And honestly, I really think these are great challenges for humanity to solve.
What's the takeaway from this episode?
My key takeaway from this episode is that quality beats speed when it comes to developing products, especially in rail, where safety and reliability are critical. I was also surprised to learn that meeting laboratory certification standards is still far from what's required in real-world operation. The fact that forces up to 500 G can occur at a single switch really highlights how extreme the environment is. We also heard how crucial a properly functioning switch is for overall network performance and how much money can be saved by preventing failures early. And of course, Oliver's personal journey stood out, from the Amazon rainforest to investment banking and finally into the railway industry. But that's exactly what the rail ecosystem needs more of. People who connecting the dots, bringing fresh perspectives and help shape the future of rail. And that's Rail Up.
This podcast connects innovators and leaders worldwide to shape the future ecosystem of rail. Rail Up by Sebastian Sperber.